All right, let's try this again. Let's try this again. Chris Courtney, your new Pragmatic. Little YouTube hiccup this morning, and boy, did it bite us good. We had a really good feedback loop that is lost into the ether because YouTube introduced some new parental controls this morning. And, welp, sometimes that happens. Welcome to Tech, where things sometimes shift on you right out from underneath your feet. The problem we've got now is, frankly, we did a lot of work earlier. I'm going to go ahead and shift my screen over so we can get started. We did a lot of work earlier, and I want to make sure that we circle back on this stuff because, unfortunately, I did a lot of changes to the file that I listed with Rebecca, and my worry is that a lot of the discussion that I had previously related to this file, and a lot of the stuff that I did with the other submissions that came through. I want to make sure I'm grabbing as much of that as I can. Let's take a look at one thing here with Rebecca's file that we did. So initially, Rebecca had these buttons, and actually, because I didn't replace all the buttons, you get a sense of what I was dealing with here on this Read Amazon Copy button. This button isn't a component, and that's part of the problem that we have when we get into building these new files. If we haven't created a robust repository of components, we just copy the same issue over and over and over again. And for instance, this button right now, if I want to fix this, because it's not quite in the center. I could drag it down, or if I really want to make sure it was centered, I could do this, and then I would do that, and it's still not centered because there's always a second line here. But now it's centered. Okay, now it's centered. It's not on the grid per se, but it is centered. The problem I have is because this has been copy pasted over and over and over again, I have to go through and do basically that same thing for every single button. Or I could create an asset page. And here I've got assets, and you can see I've gone through and I've created a small button and a large button. And while I'm here, I hate the fact that these are ordered this way. Button large is on bottom, but it's now on top. Button small is on top, but it's actually on bottom. I'm going to use a plugin here to flip that, called Reverse Layer Order, and that now moves small to the top and large to the bottom. So we have this asset file. These are both components, and you know that because it's outlined in purple, and you see the little diamond here. And that allows us to, instead of going through and individually fixing each of these, we're just going to go to assets here and drag over, say, the small button. And there it is. And this button seems a little wide, but that's okay. We can drag it to fit whatever size that we need, and then we'll say, instead of C, view brand key, and there you go. Now I can get rid of this one and keep that one, and they're all uniform, which means, if for some reason I want it to, how does one regroup the brain? Yeah, Rebecca, I totally understand that. I had gone through and recorded the entire session, and then out of the blue, somebody said, "Hey, did I miss the feedback loop?" And it dawned on me that it didn't post into Discord like it always does every day, and it was like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And it turned out YouTube had a parental adjustment. They just wanted me to tell them whether or not I was showing porn on my YouTube channel. Essentially, is this restricted to 18 and older? And no, actually, my channel isn't restricted to 18 and older. And also, I'm not I'm not showing really bad things on here, so anybody can really use it. So I just had to go through and click those new boxes that were introduced, I guess, last night, this morning, and now we can live stream again. But while I had gotten the alert that I was going to need to do that, I did not see anything that said your live stream is going to go down, and unfortunately that happened. But back to these components. If I wanted to adjust this for some reason, so for instance, I'm going to go back to layers and we'll go down here to the assets. And let's say for whatever reason, I wanted the background of this, instead of being this, I want it to be purple. You can see it's changing both of these. And that's because this large text is actually a copy of the button small text. So I actually changed the names of these. If I wanted to change that, I would simply say reset the instance. So now you can see it's small text. I actually want to detach the instance. Let's see here if I can remember how to detach really quickly. Yeah, the component. Come on, Chris. Pull it together. Oh, I think it's not detaching because I need to detach it here. Yeah. So I'm going to detach that instance. So here we have this button, small text, it's detached. I'm going to go ahead and make this large. We'll make this 22, I believe it is what it was. And now this large button that's in here, if I want it to, in fact, make it a, yeah, there it is. So now if I go through on this other one, if I want to change this color and make it, you can see that they're now no longer connected, which is great. But here I'm just going to add in black, for instance. If I did that and came back over to page, now you'll see all the instances of that small component are changed. Now this one isn't changed because it's the large text, but these that are the small text are changed. I'm going to undo because I don't really want to change that into its own I don't want to change the background color, but that's where like creating these as components instead of copy pasting these over and over again. That's really the key, is like anytime I make an adjustment, it applies to all of them. So that was one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle that we discussed earlier, looking at Rebecca's project, was there were a couple things. One, previously she had this label over here, and then she had like the competition, and then like there was a sub label here that was like competitors. My thought here was like the easiest thing to do here was the competition and competitors is kind of redundant. So I got rid of that competitors label, and then I simplified the visuals that were going with the elements. So like you need the 4 logos here. I totally get that. But do you need 2 images here? Do you need multiple images here? And the answer is no. You need to simplify the number of images. Like, use the best images. Don't try to squeeze like 3 images in here. Earlier, when looking at this was like the logo or illustration, which I'm fine with. Then you had pictures, and then there was some other tech-related pick. Well, let's just get rid of that. That's unnecessary. Let's just go with one picture. One picture that works. Let's go with a picture that works. Let's go with a picture that works instead of multiple pictures. The simplification of your design as you go is going to be key. Additionally, one of the things that we focused on was, I designed this in such a way that it's basically 50 pixels. of padding around these. All right, and what that means is if there's 50 pixels of padding around it, that means that there's roughly 100 pixels of padding between. And it says 114. I'm sure if I change it to 100, if I change it to 100, it's pretty close there. So the spacing between was something else that we were really focusing on earlier. So that's 100. And then you get down here and you go, oh, well, wait, this isn't 100. This is a lot more than that. And I was trying to figure out why that was. I don't necessarily know why this is selected. So, I mean, it's very long. But you get the idea, like just moving these elements up gives you a much more consistent design as you are moving down the page. 100 pixels between. You could even do that up here if you wanted to. I started with 50 pixels because I was just wrapping the section. But I do think that 100 pixels around. The other thing that I had focused on was taking this everything into Grammarly. I spotted some spelling errors as we were going through. This was one area in particular that Grammarly was really fighting with. I'm pretty sure I've still got it saved here. Yeah, so in Grammarly we changed this paragraph. The designers I was working with didn't have the UX knowledge, period. I knew that there had to be a better way. And as it says, Grammarly identified this as a monotonous passage. So let's compare the before and after. The designers I was working with didn't have UX knowledge. I knew there had to be a better way. Every business I've been involved in has always been all about the customer and customer experience. I adjusted this to read, the designers I worked with lacked the UX knowledge needed to improve the product. I knew there had to be a better way. A successful business focuses on the customer and customer experience. Okay? The difference here is that really it's about that first sentence. The designers I was working with didn't have the UX knowledge. The designers I worked with lacked the UX knowledge needed to improve the product. So the difference here is it's not that they didn't have the knowledge, it's they lacked what was necessary to do something. And making that switch makes the paragraph work. The paragraph actually is a little longer now than it was before. All right? So it's not like I shortened this up. I just had to add a little bit to it. And the second sentence in here, suddenly Grammarly is okay with it because it's now supporting a sentence that makes a lot more sense. So in these instances, I really would encourage you to jump into Grammarly. There were again a few spelling errors that we caught earlier, and I would hate for those to pop up. If I could ever find my way back to, yes, there it is. If I could ever find my way back to the project. So really, Rebecca, for you, this is simplification of the images being used. Grab that text, put it in Grammarly. Simplification of the structure, like 50 pixels all the way around each of these sections. Making components out of these so it's just easier to update them and like just plop them down. And then and I am interested in seeing like what specifically do you do here? I know that you broke those out because I advised breaking those out, but I would like to see what your thoughts are regarding how you massage those to work in a presentation form. So from there, I want to take a look again back at Bergen. The Bergen overview was, I think this is much closer to like, let's go code it up. There are a couple things that I did notice. You've got the context here, which I'd asked about earlier. I think that's good to have that with the video. Like one big area here is like that I had a question about was like what is happening in this left rail? Is it an image? Is it just space? I'm not against having space there, but I do notice I did remember you were talking about some sort of bird that like slides down the page, and I wasn't necessarily sure if that's where it would be occurring, but this seems like an awful lot of space just kind of hanging out off to the left. As we go down, one thing I was pointing out, or one thing I pointed out earlier, is you have a lot of these little small detail images. I'm not necessarily sure what those are. There are some areas like I want to say it's down here where you had the voiceover. Yeah, the voiceover. I'm guessing that's like an audio file, or maybe it's a picture of the person. You click the picture and it plays the voice. I think in those cases it makes a lot of sense. In these cases, like for story, I'm not sure that there's an image that's really going to work for you there. So that's where I would consider potentially doing something. Sorry, I've got to come in here. Yeah, no, she's been nice enough to make a Chris, you can break this particular file for me. Instance, let's see here, quote. I'm going to, come on, quote. Oh, no wonder. Okay, it's part of a larger thing, which I've got to detach. Okay, now that I've detached it, now I think I can detach this one. This is where if you don't have an image to the side, you could always come back and use that quote. I know that it gets a little squirrely here with the spacing, but it's just something to throw out there. Also on the quote, I wanted to mention, like, using quotes, nobody's going to ever ding you for using a quote from Walt Disney. If you want to expand if you want to educate the mind of the person that's reading it, use a quote from somebody that they may not know. The perfect example of this is Mike Montero's book, Design as a Job. He starts talking about Victor Papanek and the important role that Victor Papanek played in the production of the book. And Victor Papanek was an author, and he was an author and somebody I didn't know of prior to reading Design as a Job. It feels silly now because I've read his book and I've watched some of the old videos of him bashing Apple in 1992, and I feel like I feel like that name's very familiar to me now, but I didn't know it then. You can utilize that if you have the right names. I would sprinkle in some names. This is kind of like when guitarists talk to guitarists, and they always talk about, oh, there's this person that you really have to know about. There's this unknown gem that you should be listening to. Those sorts of things. Visual direction. I pointed out in the earlier call that these should be individual images. You can use CSS Grid to put them together in a tight, compact way. But when this goes down to mobile, I want this to be something that is responsive. And if we want to peel off these images, we can. And this, display it. Have this display more. The same thing down here for storyboard. I want to make sure that we are adjusting things so that if you want to peel off 12 or 8, whatever it is, you're definitely not going to want to stack 16 of these vertically in a mobile design. Really love the ABC versions here. I really think that that's super smart, showing all the versioning, and talking about what the overall, what does what does success look like? People that are reading through this, they may be getting a sense of you as a designer, but really with any of our projects, success to each client is different. So outlining that is super smart. Overall, though, I think that this is really strong. Now it's time to really begin pushing into the design system. Like how do you elevate this? What are the images that are going in? I think you've identified that in the fact that you've pulled over all those assets into your portfolio inventory. So you are well set up to move forward here, Tejal. I really feel like this is really strong work. So now it's like, where is that design system that you're going to work with? I know you've got quite a few things here, and really it's about going in and beginning to update these components, so that right now you've got this award-winning bit, but if you went through and in your assets began, I'm guessing it's an archive, perhaps. I'm trying to figure out where these assets are saved at. Oh, okay. That's one thing I would suggest doing. Like, you've created these assets are over here on your copy. I would make a separate page called components and save those assets to your components page, and then begin updating them so that wherever they're used, they're not locked in on that one specific page. They have a home, much like I was showing over here with the assets page. Like, this is just a page. It has a couple of buttons on it, but this is away from it. This is away from the actual production of the case study itself. Okay, so getting a assets page created for this, to where you can begin putting the high fidelity design against it, I think would be helpful. If I can ever find, it's because I'm not on that. It's because I'm not on that page anymore. There it goes. And there's the broken one that I was working on. So minor adjustments, but I really feel like, if you can begin thinking in terms of, okay, how are we laying this out? How are we going to code this? That would begin to help you in this asset. Now you're in this phase of like, all right, how are these assets coming together? The final bit that I talked about earlier was with Alfonso's design ethics challenge. And the whole point of the design ethics chapter is to get us thinking about what happens when we're at the table. For years, designers have been fighting for a chance to get a seat at the table, and what happens at the table is not as pretty as it sounds. You're always working with and around a lot of bad ideas. Like, there are people that just sit down at the table and they say, hey, let's do this thing. And it could be the setup of a workflow. It could be what the pricing structure is going to be. It could be how you're promoting a product, which is what the case is with the North Face, Leo Burnett Wikipedia issue. So the challenge is always, how do you work around those bad ideas? And the worst way to work around a bad idea is to say, that's a bad idea. Just outright say that's a bad idea and have nothing to follow up with. You always are going to have a much better reception to your attempt to knock down a bad idea when you beat it with an idea. You've got to come with an idea. You've got to be able to think on your toes, and you can't say, well, I don't know a lot about this space, so I'm probably not helpful here. You have to be inventive, all right? And Alfonso's submission here is one. It's an idea that I haven't heard, and dozens of people have been through the design ethics chapter at this point, and this is the first time I've seen Reddit brought up. And he mentions that there's a culture on Reddit that specifically focuses on pushing images to the top of Google, and basically setting up a public game in Reddit for people to do this, instead of going around and trying to hide in the shadows and doing it doing it against the service policies of Wikipedia. So this is the same idea as the Wikipedia thing, except it's done in a very transparent manner. This takes knowledge of what happens on Reddit. So this is less about marketing and just about, do you know about all the different ways that you can push ideas around on the net? This is where conversations are helpful. This is where having Alfonso in that room at the table for this discussion, regardless if Alfonso is a marketing person, that's not the point. The point is you're part of a team that's trying to promote a product, and all ideas are needed at the table. This is a great one because it's the same idea that the Wikipedia angle was, but it's just more transparent and leveraging something that already happens. The other ideas here are, just buying the ads and whatnot. That's probably not going to fly because that's what they're already doing. They're wanting to do something different, and I think that all you need is one. All you need is one option that beats the bad option that's on the table. And Alfonso, I think you did a pretty good job here. One of the things that I always encourage people to do is like stretch the technical boundaries. Think about the thing that's happening at the edge. Maybe it's augmented reality. Maybe it's VR. Maybe it's drone. Whatever it is, you have an opportunity to push the boundaries of the technical sphere, and typically at those boundaries are opportunities for promotion and the next thing. So just something to keep in mind there. While we're here, I want to go ahead and jump in on James. James, welcome back, man. James had a little puppy. I don't know if you've seen it in Discord. It's got the cone on its head. So the puppy had to go to the vet. Probably trying to keep it from gnawing at the surgery area. Glad you're doing better. Glad your puppy's doing better, James. Obviously, James's issue is he's got a puppy that's probably not wanting to move around a whole lot, and he is right at the very beginning of the program, needing to go to the store and do observational research. I won't ask you to go back out in the field for just a little bit, James. But he's gone through and he's in Seattle, and this is very interesting probably to Luigi and Kara and Eve, who've gone through because they did all of their, they're East Coasters and they've done all of this. James, you're a West Coaster, so seeing how the different store cultures work would be helpful. So it says here you grabbed a Starbucks located close to the store exit. There were 3 checkout lines. There were a few folks ended up giving the cashier their goods and leaving. So yeah, I James is nice enough to provide an overview of what happened in each of these situations. This is just the detail. As you can see, James also noted one line closes, cash only line. So he was there long enough to not only detail the people that were coming through, and I love that he's got these coded, like there's race, gender, and age. And age is an approximation. So he basically came up with a code that he could really quickly write down to identify who was going through and what, and then he talked about what they were buying. This is really well documented, James. I remember Luigi, God bless him. He was like, I missed 8 or 9 people, and he'd like documented like 200 people coming through like a busy rush hour at a Whole Foods in Brooklyn, or maybe it was Manhattan. Anyway, this is really on that level. Well documented. And I love it. He's got these little details on the phone with headphones, carrying one freezer bag, gym clothes in a hurry. Well, that's like what one freezer bag. Like, did they have an injury? Like 2 bags, case of Pepsi's, end cart, AirPods. So. And the AirPods thing is really, wow, these people came through. These are students. They're 20 years old. They bought lots of discount Halloween candy. Heck yeah, they did. These are really great details. reusable bag attached to dog, one AirPod, so like one AirPod in, one AirPod out, a gallon of milk and a large jar of pickles, kids pushing the cart, mom on the phone. This is really great. You get a sense of the type of people coming through that store, and you also get a sense of, in a hurry, wearing AirPods, got the kids. Like, you get a sense of all the things that are going on. They're multitasking. This is something, when we go to the grocery store, we're always multitasking. When we're never really slowing down enough to just do that task. And because of that, that means that there's an opportunity to optimize. There's a desire that we don't really want to be there doing that thing. We've got other things on our mind. I am interested in seeing this one. So this first one was, let's see here, what time was it? So this is the afternoon. Okay, whoa, I thought this was the slow one. Okay, so you watch 62 people come through. Okay, so maybe I have it reversed. Maybe the slow one was the morning one. Same location. He had a bagel for breakfast. Good for you. QFC. It must be like quality foods something. Anyway. So one clerk in this area assisting customers with issues. There were renovations going on. Closest exit was taped off. I saw several customers walk toward it only to double back and go to a different exit. So one bag, AirPods, phone, bottled coffee, lots of bottled coffee. 3x Starbucks coffee pitchers. One bag. Each child had juice and snacks, headphones, AirPods. Yeah, just like a lot of people, a lot of distracted people, a lot of people on their phone, a lot of people trying to get somewhere else. So, James, this is really good, really great detail. The whole point of research is to go through and be paying attention to the world that these users are currently existing, so you understand what the status quo is. The project that you're going to be jumping into is going to be, how do we flip this around and actually deliver meals to them where they are. So you're going to be hopping into the stakeholder interview and getting a sense of what the project really is. But the first thing that I always like to do is I like to get into the field and I like to begin testing. You learn a lot about people when you watch them ride a bus or ride a train. You learn a lot about people when you sit down and watch them go through a store. The checkout, it's a little less stalking when you're like just watching people go through a checkout. That's why I want it to start with that. But I would encourage you on any project that you're ever going through to make going out and doing some observational research like the first way that you become more familiar with the challenge ahead of you. Okay. Hey, that's round 2. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the feedback loop for Thursday. We did it. It was so good we did it twice. It feels good. If you have questions, I invite you to jump into the Discord channel at any time. I am around literally all day long. I've got some heavy-duty editing to do. So I'm going to put my headphones on, and I'm going to get to editing because I've got prototype and wireframing recorded, and I want to get those out because there's so many great things that we can do if you have that video or those videos. So without further ado, I got to get back to work. You do the same, and I look forward to chatting with all of you either on a call like you're in the middle of the day as we go, or I will chat with all of you tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow is Portfolio Potluck. So if you have any friends that are looking to have their portfolios reviewed, send them my way. Take care.